Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. And as we go into the Christmas and New Year's break of the CDL, lots of questions as to who have been the most impressive players in the league so far. Octane comes out with his top 5 list. Kenny then reacts to it as well. He mentions 6 players here, Octane, and none of these are Scrappy of the Toronto Ultra. Scrappy, though, probably disagrees with this assessment, saying that in terms of impact, he's basically the most impactful in the entire league. Dashy and Cellium can't come close. They play too slowly. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. We're going to speak about Kenny in a second. I always think it's pretty funny to see what Chicken Burger is up to. If you guys don't know about Chicken Burger, this is this guy's account. He was always at the premium Octane hater, and you know, he still replies to Octane sometimes, but I think the Thieves guys in general, that this Chicken Burger 50 guy on Twitter would always just be roasting. So you know, Kenny often will come back with a drop the selfie, which we haven't unfortunately seen quite as of yet. This also I thought was interesting going into the new set of patches. So we've played so far just on the old patch, the old spawn system. Going forwards though, that'll be a slightly different story. These are the most banned and picked maps so far of the season that COD League Stats puts together. So this is what the pros are doing. The least and I suppose like most favorite maps picked. The most picked so far is Invasion, Search and Destroy. So you actually see a lot of Invasion Search, a lot of Invasion Hardpoint. So I guess that's fair enough. The most banned, as you might expect, are Subbase. That's been banned 14 times. That's the most banned of anything. But they've actually been played a fair bit as well. 7 Subbase Hardpoints we have seen so far, which is a fun game mode, I think, to at least watch on the pre-patch version. Going forwards, I think this is going to be somewhat different because we've seen lots of terminal hardpoints so far, which has somewhat surprised me in the sense that it's not exactly a map that anybody can win, but it's a very rotation-heavy map. Like, for example, the plane rotation over to, like, Burger or whatever. That is such an important rotation because if you win that rotation, you can lock down 120 seconds on the next couple of hardpoints. And then the first hardpoint is kind of close as well. So, you know, it's a pretty crazy map, and I think it definitely opens the door to teams. Sure, the better team's going to win most of the time, but it does also mean that you can get 120 points without really doing that much right, just getting the rotation right and getting the kills you should be getting. So, we're seeing a lot of it still though. Karachi S&D a fair bit of that. Now then you get into like the Skid Row hardpoints and certainly the Skid Row Search and Destroy. We've only had that picked 4 times so far, but of course you get more Search and Destroys than Controls. So High Rise has actually been banned 4 times, picked 5 times. So it's kind of interesting. We're seeing mostly Karachi in terms of Control, but it's still getting banned a fair bit. So, you know, teams either seem to like Karachi or not like it, and they might leave High Rise as the leftover possibly if they don't really feel one way or the other. But I think the new spawns and everything is going to somewhat change the perception of this going forwards. I would expect Terminal, especially given the new spawns on the map, do not look particularly good in terms of making the map play better. That, I think, will drop down a fair bit. Now, after the first couple of weeks of the CDL, I think we've got to see, really, that there's probably more of a skill gap than I expected to see so far. We are seeing some crushing series, some quick 3-0s. I mean, let's be honest, I think it was Major 2 last year in Boston or whatever it was, right? Where we had 6 3-0s in a row at some point, and that was wild, and there was talk like, why are we getting all these 3-0s? Is the left side of the stage rigged or something or whatever? We've now had 4 3-0s in a row to close out this, you know, this set of matches. All of the games on Sunday were 3-0s, and the final game on Saturday was a 3-0. Now, 2 of those were Carolina Ravens, who were getting absolutely slammed, like giga chokeslam into the brute oblivion. So maybe it's somewhat expected, but I think we've kind of got to see already a pretty good perception of which teams are the best, which teams are the worst, but also the players on both sides of this discussion. Now, we'll get to Dashy here in a second, but Octane actually came up with a video on this that Kenny watched on stream the other day, and he kind of goes through it here. So I'll just kind of skip through this real quick because Octane talks first. The first guy he talked to actually was Kenny, which is pretty funny. So Kenny was watching and got some gas on this. So he talks about Kenny, obviously brings up the stats and stuff. So you know, I think definitely justifiable. So this is Octane's top 5 players. Now, there's only so many players who can put top 5. There's always players that are going to miss out on this. You know, we're not even aBeZy might be phenomenal this year and probably has been very good so far, but he's not even getting a look in on a list like this at the moment. The only one from FaZe that Octane mentions, of course, is he goes into talk about Simp, which of course you simply can't get away from at this moment. He then goes on to talk about MettalZ as well, which is absolutely justifiable. Like, this guy's stats have been insane. You know, I've talked to you guys before about MettalZ, how excited this guy is to watch, and I think there's, you know, no difference about that this time around. Then he brings up Pred as well. I guess I better drop the like on this one for the algorithm. There you go. So, you know, do your bit, boys. And then, yeah, so obviously he talks about Pred as well. So 2 guys from OpTic. He talks about Pred, talks about Kenny. you know, he could probably have put in Dashy as well after the couple of weeks that he has, but I think Pred and Kenny especially have just been ridiculously good. I know that also Octane says, well, you know, they stat padded a bit against Ravens. Not like they stat padded, they did what they had to do, but they had a nice series against Ravens that were getting slammed. The final player, though, that Octane mentions is CleanX, actually, from Toronto Ultra, which I think at the time, definitely justifiable. Now, sure, they kind of got slammed by Boston, but apart from that, CleanX was their best player, most impactful player so far. And the other player that he mentions is HyDra, right? Because I guess he kind of had to mention someone from the Subliners, so he talks about HyDra as kind of like an honorable mention. So Kenny kind of agrees and, you know, talks through these discussions as well. Of course, you guys can check out the video in your own time. People would say, oh, you've got to put Dashy in there, like, yeah, this monster series, but you know, if you were choosing MVPs for OpTic, I would say Kenny first, probably Pred seconds, to be honest. And this is the point that Scrappy is trying to get across here, we'll see in a second, is that, sure, Dashy's numbers might be great, but is he as impactful as some of the other ARs? Now, also, though, Scrappy doesn't even mention Kenny, who has been arguably the most impactful, even in the clutch moments in the league so far. But going into this season, if you guys had to predict who are going to be the MVPs, I think most people would have put Simp in there just because of the way this game plays, and that's looking pretty good so far. Most people would have put, you know, Pred or Dashy probably in there as the most likely OpTic candidates. You've got to put HyDra in there. But from Ultra, right, the team that's also up there, I think most people would have said Scrappy, right? He was Rookie of the Year last year by an absolute landslide, and he wasn't far off the MVP race as well. He was in contention. But so far this season, sure, they've only played 3 games. They got slammed in the final one. Scrap has not been that impressive, really. It's actually been Insight, I would say, that's been more impressive from an AR perspective. So there's been people wondering, okay, like, is Scrap washed? Like, you know, what's going on? And obviously it's very early days. But Scrappy's given some thoughts on this, actually, and said that, well, from like an impactful AR perspective, that seems to be what he's getting at. He feels like he's, you know, the best in the game, basically, and there's only a couple that can even possibly compete with him. Even this clip here where he kind of gets slammed here by Drazah, and there was a few words exchanged. And Scrappy definitely plays at a very high pace. In terms of ARs, there's not many others that really, you know, can match him and, you know, drops a lot of damage. But to be fair, it was a kind of similar story last year. Maybe Insight is just better at this game, and therefore there's fewer kills to go around. But still, Scrap on paper, theoretically, especially in Search and Destroy, has not been, you know, maybe the player that we expected him to be so far, and maybe that's going to be influential when they play some important series going forwards.
Bro, you're a f***ing AR, bro. I'm an AR with sub-base, with sub-numbers, bro. With sub-numbers. Name another one like it. Name another one. Cell don't have my numbers, hen. Cell don't have my numbers. Cell don't move like me. Cell's iron the f*** up. Cell don't move like me. Dashy don't move like me either. Skyz don't move like me either. The only one that Drazah, okay, Drazah could be up there.
No, he's still in RP5.
Drazah could be up there. Drazah don't. Drazah don't got my numbers though. Sib, yeah, Sib's flying. Yeah, no. I would say Drazah and Sib. Drazah and Sib are the only ones. Exactly, but like that's fine, bro. Those guys could shoot. I'll be in one with them. I'll be with them. Clearly, half the chat doesn't even know what I'm talking about. I have I have sub numbers. Like I have numbers compared to a sub. My pace is compared to a sub. Okay? You guys are saying Brandon, Cell, those motherfuckers don't move.
We can see this here in some of the numbers, and sure, they haven't played that many series yet, but in terms of KDs, Dashy's up there, you know, Pred's up there in various games. We looked at this, but Scrap, and to be fair, Drazah, and even Sib, the players that he mentioned maybe are similar in pace to himself, are down on some of these, kind of at the bottom of the scoreboard. Sib in the hard points, Drazah and Scrap in the Search and Destroy, of course, early days. But, you know, we've also got to look at Hill Time, for example, where Dashy is the Super Soaker. This guy is turning into Octane, apparently. Maybe if he could level up the comms even further, he could be, you know, Octane 2.0. They've even got the little hill kitten here, which I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, Dashy, 120 seconds in time per 10 minutes. Like, that's so absurd. And also you got to wonder, like, with the whole Minnesota Rocket situation, Awakening's more hill time than accuracy. Feels a little bit interesting. But Insight is getting all the time. And statistically, he's doing the best job in terms of KD and stuff. Scrappy has the least time in the entire league. Pred is up there. I mean, look, Pred hates getting to the hard point. This guy, like, you know, he would like nothing less than to sit in the hard point all the time. So this guy, just let him run around. Scrap, though, is even lower. He only has 25 seconds per 10 minutes, which is very different to Insight, his teammate, and very different to, you know, even Dashy and Kenny, for example, on the other side. So sure, maybe Scrappy is full well an AR player with sub-numbers in terms of engagements and stuff like this, in terms of his movement and impact and everything along those lines. But does that necessarily correlate with, you know, actually being good? Because, look, his Slayer rating is right up there. It's higher than CleanX. This is effectively number of kills expected per series if it goes goes all the way to game 5, Scrappy's the only AR on this list. So look, he's putting down a lot of damage, he's getting a lot of impact, but you know, his KD isn't necessarily there this season, and look, KD isn't everything you need. We'll talk about this thing at the top here in a second, but he's not even in a position to get in the conversation right now for a top 5 player in the game, which might be surprising. You know, even if Toronto had beaten Boston, if they're 3-0'd Boston, still Scrappy wouldn't have been in conversation. It'd have been CleanX, right, who's considered right now to be their best player, really. And sure, he's got a 1.2 in control. His search is somewhat letting him down. His hardpoint's been fine, and they haven't played that many series. But, you know, comparing these numbers to Insight's numbers, if this actually wants to load and go off the white screen, you know, this is what Insight's doing. Okay, again, search and destroy somewhat lackluster, but in the other game modes, maybe a bit more consistency. I know you guys have seen this at the top as well, the Ultra Essentials neck warmer, Scrappy style, which is appearing on his thing. I went to check this out. I imagine they're going to make this, but I don't know if it's live yet because I went on their site and I couldn't find it yet, so I don't really know what the future of this is going to be. But yeah, the Scrappy neck warmer, I guess stay tuned for that one. But do you think Scrappy's right in his analysis here? Because he's also kind of calling out Dashy and Cellium, 2 of the ARs with some of the best stats so far. And look, all the players that we've mentioned are doing their job. And Dashy and Cell are the main ARs. Scrappy is effectively the second AR flex type player. And I think last season, I expected Insight to be better statistically, and I probably expected Scrappy to not be quite as good statistically. So, you know, it's all a matter of both of them working at the same time. But we've seen what Kenny and Dashy have done. They've both been very good in the last couple of series. They're both throwing big numbers and lots of hill time and staying really impactful. So all teams are going to behave in slightly different ways. But I think Scrap talking trash to some degree to some of these other AR players and, you know, considering himself to be still right up there, if not the best, whereas the numbers don't necessarily play that out. It's definitely a storyline to keep your eyes on as we go forward. Now, this, for example, is Nameless's tier list he came out with. I kind of like the way that he's, you know, I think it's controversial, but I kind of like the tiers that he's gone for. So, you know, S tier is will win an event for sure. A is should win an event. So I guess that's going to be your top 4 teams in some order. B tier is could win an event. So, you know, Boston, Surge, and obviously Heretics are in here. No longer Florida, but Miami. Won't win an event is Gorillas, Thieves, and Vegas. And then straight up can't win an event. Now, I think I'd probably put a couple of more teams right now in can't win an event, to be honest. But, you know, maybe I'd chuck Vegas down there. But still, maybe this is fair enough. I think we don't want to run the risk of, like, overhyping Miami too much. Like, they haven't beaten great teams. They've done the job against those teams. And I think they're going to be good. But I want to see them against a top team before I really cast judgment on them. But I think what Nameless has done here is probably about justified. The top is going to be interesting, of course, because of the way these teams have looked so far. It seems to me that this is, with the exception maybe of Florida, Miami, effectively just the current CDL rankings as in terms of the standings in a ranking order. You know, like the undefeated teams, with the exception of Heretics, are at the top. Then the 3-1 teams, 2-1 teams are here. The teams that are, you know what I mean? And sure, that is going to reflect the actual ability of the teams. But I'm not sure I would have, okay, Subliners beat OpTic, so I guess that's why they're there. But I'm not sure Subliners are the better team than OpTic right now on the evidence we've seen over the last couple of weeks. But very much interested in your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.